Along the way, we'll meet Governor Morris, the Cross Bronx Expressway, and the creators of hip-hop. Ian Frazier is the author of Paradise Bronx. He joins us to discuss and take your calls about what he says is New York's greatest borough. I'm Allison Stewart. Join me for all of it, weekdays at noon on WNYC.
It's 6:51 and somebody likes that pigeon song. Marketplace Morning Report is next on Morning Edition. The crossover hit, a bar song from musician Shabuzi, just logged its 10th week at number 1 on the Billboard Pop Chart. Before the 2000s, that was something that rarely happened. But now, in the days of streaming, it's become more common. We'll have more on that in about 15 minutes. Upper 60s right now and partly cloudy. Chance of showers mainly early afternoon. Cloudy and 75 today. Back to the mid-60s or upper 60s overnight with showers likely. And then tomorrow, chance of showers and upper 70s once again. It's 6:52.
The steering wheel at the helm of the economy starts to turn today.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Clear Channel Outdoor, an out-of-home billboard company harnessing innovation and technology to connect advertisers with consumers. Billboardsforbusiness.com. And by Progressive Insurance. Customers can simplify their insurance needs and protect what's important by bundling home and auto. Learn more about bundling at Progressive.com.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore, in for David Brancaccio. Today is the day the Federal Reserve will announce what it will do with the interest rates that steer the economy. It'll cut them, that is almost for sure. The question is how aggressively. We'll find out. The Fed is independent, and Fed chairs generally refuse to get dragged into politics over these decisions. The Fed's next interest rate deciding meeting in November would have landed on Election Day, so the Fed moved it. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer has this look at interest rate decisions in election years past.
If you're keeping score, over the past 8 presidential elections, the Fed has gone 4, 3, and 1. That is, it's cut interest rates in 4 election years, raised them in 3, and left things unchanged in 2012.
The Fed might want to duck out of the wind, but they don't.
Sarah Binder is a professor of political science at George Washington University. She says Fed officials resisted pressure from former President Donald Trump to lower rates before the pandemic.
Their legitimacy depends on a reputation for nonpartisanship, even though they live in a very partisan political system.
In the 1960s and 70s, it was much more common for presidents to browbeat Fed chairs. Presidents Johnson and Nixon pushed for rate cuts to goose the economy right before elections. Gary Richardson was a historian at the Fed and is now at the University of California, Irvine. He says in the late 70s, legislation established that the Fed reports to Congress and that the central bank's job is to keep inflation in check with as many people working as possible.
These institutional changes in the 70s really helped to cement the Fed's independence from the executive branch.
Richardson says you really don't want the White House in charge of interest rates because if you just lower them in an election year, regardless of what's best for the economy, you might overheat it and have to increase rates later to cool things down. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
All right, let's do the numbers. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all up about 0.2%. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is 3.666%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business, aiming to help save time by offering smart business buying solutions so there's more time to focus on growing the business and less time doing the admin. More at AmazonBusiness.com. And by Barron's Streetwise podcast, hosted by Barron's Associate Editor Jack Howe, offering insights each week on business leaders and trend spotters, available everywhere.
Now for some office politics. That is the name of our series on how companies shape political divides when they take sides or take stands. So ahead of the election, we're talking to companies that use their brands and their employees to push policies and candidates, as well as organizations that try to dial down the political temperature by promoting constructive dialogue. Today on Office Politics, we hear from a consumer brand that wants its position known to the world. It is for the environment and against climate change. Corley Kenna is Vice President of Communications and Public Policy at the outdoor clothing and gear brand Patagonia. She spoke with my Marketplace colleague, David Brancaccio.
Why not be apolitical, a keep your head down kind of company that doesn't start trouble?
So at Patagonia, our purpose is we're in business to save our home planet. And we're really serious about that. And we also feel we need to use all the tools in the toolbox to save our home planet. And that includes electing leaders who share our sense of urgency in addressing this crisis.
I was watching a video the company put out last year on the 50th anniversary of Patagonia. And if you watch the video carefully, it lingers for a couple frames on a button that an activist might wear that reads, "Vote the jerks out." But it doesn't say jerks. It's a word that begins with A and ends in holes. I think that line was sewn into some of your clothing. That is a call to political activism on things like climate change.
It is. In the past 20 years, we've been very active on getting our community out to vote and volunteer. And it's never been about politics per se. It's always been about voting for the planet, to ask our community, join us in electing climate leaders.
But you might alienate some customers. Now, I will say there weren't a lot of comments listed on the version of the Patagonia video that I saw, but the very first comment, it reads, "I'm done with Patagonia now." I mean, if he acts on that, you lose some money.
Look, we worry anytime we turn off our customers. That's something we take very seriously. What doesn't work is when companies take their communities by surprise with a position. But we've been pretty clear for 50 years that our position is our planet is worth saving.
Patagonia is a privately held company, not listed on the stock exchange. You must thank your lucky stars often that you're not publicly traded, because it would make taking these positions, I would assume, harder.
I think sometimes it can be a convenient excuse for public companies to say that living up to their values isn't possible because they're a public company. But it does help that we have founders and leaders who are very clear-eyed on the problem and want us to be a part of solving for it.
I saw shortly after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, Patagonia announced it would bail out employees arrested for participating in peaceful protests advocating for abortion rights. Your own employees might have felt marginalized by this position. What was the thinking, and was there internal blowback?
That bail policy is actually a policy we've had in place for decades. But you're right that providing context to our colleagues is important on why we take the stands that we do. Ahead of the elections in November, we'll share a lot about various positions candidates are taking on the issues that matter to us, which really helps, I think, our colleagues sort of understand why we're doing what we're doing and to help them take meaningful action and join us.
Corley Kenna, VP of Communications and Public Policy at Patagonia. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All of our Office Politics coverage will be streamable from marketplace.org. In New York, I'm Sabri Ben-Achour with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
WNYC supporters include Bedlam, the Downtown Theater,